Hello, my name is Gino and welcome back to Warframe Fashion Review. In this series, I review and discuss in-depth past, current, and future fashion in Warframe to help you parse through the growing sea of available looks. Because fashion is endgame after all. I'll talk about things like textures, colors, armor, lighting, skins, and ephemera. Most importantly though, I'll talk about Sandanas. With the lengthy intro out of the way, let's get started on our fashion review for the Liset Prime. To get things started talking about the Liset Prime, we need to address one thing immediately. The Liset Prime is particularly different than most primed variants, as the Liset Prime is simply a skin rather than an upgrade to an item specifically. As far as I'm aware, all the Liset Prime will give you is a little bit of ooh and ah rather than actual changes to how the Liset functions in and of itself or any kind of stats. To start off, the basic shape of the Liset hasn't really changed all that much from its basic variant to its prime variant, thankfully. It retains its rather sleek design, but also seems to turn up the oomph to say. To add on to that, the basic flare and fins that the original Liset has been dialed up to 11 with the prime variant. With signature Orkin detailing and styling for the accents and the texture, the Liset Prime presents a comfortable yet fresh feeling with this new design. Moving on from the main body overview, we take a look next at the primary color channel. What we end up being presented with is a very sleek, very clean texture that covers a majority of the Liset. The texture itself has a little bit of reflectivity or shininess, but by no means is it any kind of metallic. Honestly, I think that that's a good thing because there are a lot of metallics on this, it's just that they are smaller but more frequent. Moving on to the secondary, we have what appears to be a texture that resembles hard plastic. There is quite a bit of texture detail here, and that might not necessarily be appealing to some people, but I don't think that it's too much of a detraction from this particular color channel. I do want to add on, however, that this color channel on the original Liset was not colorable at all. It was just kind of always set to be a darker gray or semi-black. Moving on to the tertiary color channel, we have what appears to be clean, very sleekly designed stripes. This sort of keeps in line with that whole sleek theme that I was talking about earlier. These stripes range from the tip of the nose in the front all the way to the back fins. I have to say, out of all of the color channels presented on this Liset so far, I think I enjoy these the most. They cut through the monotony and the singularity of the primary color channel, as well as allowing the player to add contrast and a little bit of flair to what would otherwise be a very overwhelming color. Moving on to the accents, we have many small, yet numerous metallics. These metallics seem to complement every single color channel available on this Liset, and quite frankly, I think that it's a very nice addition to see that they are small, yet numerous. I'm not a big fan of large, yet obstructive metallics, particularly on something as small as the Liset. Particularly, I think what they did with the tail fin area of the Liset is really rather interesting. I feel like it really flushes out the design of the tail, while also leaving a lot of space. And adding the metallics to that just to highlight the whole thing is really interesting. Overall, I feel like that whole area of the Liset, as minimal as the design changes were, I feel like it fleshes out the shape of it as a whole. Moving on, we go to the energy channels, or the engines as they're called here. I feel like there's really only one thing to say about these engines, is that the back end of them, and also the front end to some degree, are really a lot more visible than they are on the basic Liset. Not that you're going to necessarily be looking at the back end of your Liset very often, but it's definitely there, and it is most certainly appreciated. I think the final thing that I have to say about the aesthetic of the Liset Prime as a whole is really my only complaint. That being that even though there is a large section of the skin that you can color now as opposed to the basic one, there is still a section of the Liset Prime that you cannot color and has kind of a gray tone. I feel like that this is a growing problem with current and honestly past designs, as the Liset Prime itself is an older design, is that there are in fact uncolorable portions of skins. In my opinion, if we are going to have a fashionable object as extensive as a Liset or a Warframe or an operator suit, the entire thing should be colorable top to bottom, no exceptions. And if that means adding another color channel, I think that we should very much go ahead and add that other color channel. Because if you get down to the nitty-gritty of the whole thing, what it does is it ultimately removes player choice. And while that might be good in some instances, when you're personalizing or customizing something that is ultimately your fashion, you should be able to do so with every aspect of it, or if not, as much of it as you possibly can. To summarize, the Liset Prime has very clean color channels, interesting yet minimal but numerous metallics, as well as retaining the classic Liset look while keeping it fresh. If I were to give the Liset Prime a score, I would probably give it a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. I say this because I feel like, again, that uncolorable section is a very big detraction from being able to customize your ship, because it is ultimately your ship. Should you buy Liset Prime? I think that given that it's in a bundle with a lot of other stuff, I feel like it's an excellent addition to your collection, or if you just really like the Liset. However, I think if it were available for $10 just by itself, or for $5 without any additional platinum bundled with it, those two things would be very much ideal if you just wanted the Liset Prime. But if you like everything else in the bundle and you're really hankering for this skin, go for it. Hi, thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. Links to all my social media, Discord, and Twitch will be in the description box below. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing, sharing, or giving it a thumbs up. If not, that's fine too. I guess I'll just explode or something.